Hi, welcome back to my channel. I'm Tati, and today I'm going to be talking about the books I read in the month of April. This is going to be my monthly wrap-up. You know how this works. I'm going to go through the books I read this month, what I thought about them, and what I rated them. So let's get started. April was kind of a mixed bag when it came to reading, but I had a lot of fun. There were some good books, some great books, some disappointing books. All in all, like I said, mixed bag. Yeah, so we're gonna do this chronologically. Let's get started. The first book I read in the month of April was Twilight by Stephenie Meyer. It became very appropriate when in the last few days of April, a countdown was posted on Stephenie Meyer's website and Twitter lost its shit for a few hours, including my own group chat. So Twilight was a reread for me. I read it for the first time in about 10 years, give or take a few. I used to be obsessed with Twilight, just like every other teenage preteen girl in the late 2000s. I read it while I was starting high school, something like that. I don't even know. And I became obsessed with it, and I haven't picked it up since. I rewatch the movies every once in a while, but I haven't actually sat down to read it in a while. I read it for a video. I'm not going to talk too much about it or go in depth about my feelings and what I thought about it, because I will be posting a video soon in which I will do a full rant review. Basically, I won't even give you my rating here because I'm going to save that for my final video. But if you want a TLDR, there is a thread on my Twitter, which I will link down below, in which I reacted to the book as I was reading. And, well, let's just say it ends as abruptly as James's attack comes into play. This was a hard read for me. I spent way too much time on it. I had to finish it off with an audiobook because it was dragging on and I just couldn't finish it. So yeah, that was how I started my month. It was a full thing, and we will talk about it at length in my review of the book. So the second book I read, or in this case listened to this month, was Call Me By Your Name by Andre Aciman. So this, I have to thank my friend Taylor for sending me this audiobook. I listened to it one Saturday as I was baking cookies. I probably looked like a crazy person because I was basically flailing around my kitchen when I got to the peach scene, and I couldn't do anything with myself for about 10 minutes because I was just in shock. The audiobook is read by Armie Hammer, and he has a very soothing, wonderful voice, which was great, but otherwise this book was a wild ride for me. If you don't know, this book centers around 17-year-old Elio, who lives in Italy with his family. They're American expats, and he starts this, I hate calling it a relationship, but that's kind of what it is, with this summer guest that they host. They host a different summer student every year, and he starts a relationship with 24-year-old Oliver. Like I said, I have a lot of trouble with calling it a relationship because there is a sizable age gap there, and Elio is underage when this is all happening, so not great is what I'm trying to get at here. But yeah, Elio is by far the strangest main character I have ever encountered, because he is the epitome of the bisexual disaster, but also he is both way too mature and way too young at the same time. Also, had it not been for the audiobook, I probably would have DNF'd this book 10 pages in, because it is very pretentious, like super pretentious, and the audiobook made it bearable. I did have to listen to this at regular speed because I wasn't using one of the apps or anything. It was just an audio file that got sent to me, so I had to listen to it at regular speed as opposed to listening to 1.5, 1.8, which is where I'm usually at, sometimes 2. So It was a whole experience. I listened to it in a day as I was baking cookies. It was just chaos, but I had fun. But also, I gave this book a 2 out of 5 stars. It was far too pretentious. I felt very uncomfy the entire time with the fact that Elliot was 17 and Oliver was 24. It was, like I said, super pretentious, and I was just like, I didn't have a great time. And also, like, I didn't love the character arcs or the plot per se. There's not a lot of plot involved in this as it is. So yeah, it was a 2-star read for me all the way. I'm still glad I read it, but also I'm really glad that I didn't actually like purchase a physical copy or purchase the actual audiobook, because that would have not been great. My third read of the month was Punk 57 by Penelope Douglas. This was recommended to me by the girls in the Twilight Therapy Club. This is my first Penelope Douglas ever. I'm told that I started with the tamest of the Penelope Douglas canon, if you will. It was a bit of a wild ride. So the novel is kind of like enemies to lovers, but also friends to lovers, because the novel centers around Misha and Rienne. They've known each other for about 7 years because they've been writing letters back and forth, but they've never seen each other. They've never talked to each other like in person, and they've promised not to look each other up. And then a whole bunch of shit goes down. Misha ends up at Rienne's school, and he knows that she's the one that So Misha ends up at Rienne's school, and Misha knows that this girl is Rienne, but Rienne doesn't know that this guy is Misha because he goes by a different name, which is so fucking strange. So that's how it becomes like an enemies to lovers, but also a friends to lovers, all at the same time, and it's so fucking strange. And this book is a whole wild ride. I read it on my Kindle because it was I think I read it through Kindle Unlimited. That's how I read it, because everybody was talking about it on the chat and it was on Kindle Unlimited, and I was like, I have time, I'll just read this book. And I did. I had fun. It was a fun time, but also Rienne and Misha are not meant to be likable characters. And I like that they're not super likable, but I don't know, their whole relationship dynamic was kind of strange sometimes. Because their whole relationship dynamic was a little strange. And also, I felt that the ending was super rushed and like super happy-go-lucky, like idealized version of what their lives would be. But that's besides the point. I had a good time. I gave it a 3 out of 5. The Twilight Therapy Club ladies have not let me down thus far. So, yeah. So, my fourth read of April was The Forbidden Game, The Chase by L.J. Smith. If you've watched my March wrap-up, you know that I read the first book in this trilogy, which is The Hunter. It's all in this one big book. So, I read The Chase in April. I have to say that this was a very disappointing read for me. I loved the first book, The Hunter. I thought it was great. The characters were amazing. The whole plot of them ending in the house, in the shadow world, and then Julian being there, like the sexy antagonist, but also he has like a very deep moral code. I loved it. I loved the first book. I think I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars, if I remember correctly. But the second book, compared to the first one, was such a letdown. Like, such a letdown. Nothing really happens for the majority of the book until the last 50 pages, in which a new game is instated, and it's a very, it's a boring game. Like, compared to the first one, in which they had to go through the house and face their fears, and they had, like, a race against time, this one was very boring. It was basically, what is it that they call it in America? Cops and robbers, I think it is. Yeah, you're just meant to, like, take everyone, like, everybody gets designated, like, either you're a cop or a robber, and then they establish a base, and, like, one person can get all the robbers out. I don't know. something like that. And they basically established a game like that, but rules aren't really given like they were the first time, and it followed like a very predictable pattern, and there were really no stakes to it. I mean, something happens at the end, but I don't know, it was just like, compared to the first one, it was very slow. Nothing really happened. The game was kind of boring, and there was definitely not enough Julian in it. And the one thing that stays consistent from the first book is that Jenny's boyfriend Tom can absolutely choke. Like, he finally has a revelation that like he hasn't been treating Jenny well all these years in their relationship, but still he doesn't treat her that much better in the second book, even though he has this huge realization that apparently like shatters his world. But he can still choke. He's not that great of a boyfriend, not that great of a guy. He's pretty bland, and also he just doesn't treat Jenny all that well. Yeah, I gave it a 2 out of 5 stars because I was deeply disappointed. After the first one, I came off like so excited for the second one, and I was just thoroughly disappointed. Am I still going to finish the trilogy? Yes, I am. And I will hopefully be getting to it in June, because as you may have seen in my May TBR video, I have a very ambitious TBR that I'm tackling in the month of May. So the kill will have to be left for June. So yeah, those were my thoughts on The Forbidden Game. The Chase, I was just disappointed. It is what it is. The 5th book I read this month was Aphrodite Make Me Do It by Tristan Mattier. I think that's how you pronounce her name. I'm so sorry if I butchered it. This was it's not a poetry collection. It's a poetry book. It's very Instagram poetry. It has a lot of beautiful artwork in it. But I'm not usually one for poetry or Instagram poetry in general, but I really love this book because, first of all, the art in it was absolutely amazing. Literally 3 pages in, I was like, I'm sorry, I should preface. I read this on my Kindle because it was on sale on Amazon, and I decided to buy it because it sounded intriguing. And 3 pages in, I was like, I need to buy a physical copy of this book because it is stunningly beautiful. And then I read it, and I need a physical copy of this because I need to annotate it. It deals with topics of sexuality, accepting your own body, growing up. It's a beautiful book. The blend of poetry and prose was excellent. I didn't even know I wanted that. And when I finished the book, I was like, this was amazing. I gave this book a 5 out of 5 stars. I would definitely recommend. So the premise of it is that most of the poems are based on as if the speaker of the poems is having a back and forth with Aphrodite, the Greek goddess of love and beauty. And so they talk about womanhood and sexuality and the body and how it has changed throughout the years, and like how a woman's body changes and how we see ourselves as women. It was a beautiful book. I loved it. So yeah, I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars, and there is one line that I do want to leave you with because it spoke to me in a way that like a lot of poetry speaks to me. The line is this: you do not exist to prove anything to anyone. And I found that so, so, so beautiful. So yeah, I would definitely recommend this book. If you're not big into poetry, this book is a good way to start because it's a mix of like Instagram poetry with like just like non-Instagram poetry. I don't want to call it real poetry because all poetry is real poetry. Like, that's such a stupid distinction that people make sometimes. It's just like a beautiful mix of art, prose, and poetry. That's what I'm trying to get at. It was great. I think I read it in like an hour and a half, and I listened to Prelude for Time Feelers the entire time. It was such an experience to listen to, like, read the book with this song on in the background. It just like took me on a wild ride, and I absolutely loved it. The 6th and final book that I read this month was The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. I decided to pick up The Song of Achilles at the end of the month because I recently got the Scribd free trial because I saw that they had the audiobook for The Song of Achilles. I've tried to read this book a few times already, and I was having a lot of trouble like getting into the story. So when I saw that they had the audiobook, I decided to finally sign up and listen to the audiobook as I also follow along with my book. So that's why you see there's all the annotations. I have a lot of mixed feelings on this book. For the one part, I had a lot of trouble getting into the story. The audiobook definitely helped. Otherwise, I would have had a lot of trouble like actually getting through this book by myself. But still, I'm very soft for Achilles and Patroclus' relationship. I think that the way they love each other so fully, so wholly, how they are willing to sacrifice so much for each other is beautiful. And I do have to say that I sobbed my way through the last 2-3 chapters. And for that alone, I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars because not many books can make me sob anymore. I mean, Red, White, and Royal Blue is one, and I really can't think of another book that does like captures me in such a way. And the fact that it just like I was literally sobbing my eyes out for the last 3 chapters really clinched it for me. I enjoyed the book, don't get me wrong, but it's just I had trouble getting into the story as it was. But the audiobook was great. The last 3 chapters broke my heart. There's no other way to put it. So yeah, I don't know. I give this book a lot of slack. Okay. One of my main mixed feelings about it was that I was expecting to love this book. And the fact that I had so much trouble getting into it and like engaging with it, it kind of broke my heart a little bit because I was hoping, I had such high expectations for this book that I was gonna love it and be immersed in it from the very beginning, and I just wasn't, and that kind of sucked. But I do have to say that this is a debut novel, so I'm not saying that I'll never pick up anything from Madeline Miller again, especially because she did manage to make me sob for 3 chapters. But I give it a little bit more slack because I know that debut novels aren't always like the seminal piece of work that a writer is going to put out into the world. Not everybody comes out swinging on their debut novel. So it was still good. I enjoyed the story. The character arcs were great. I loved Achilles and I loved Patroclus, and that ending, man. I can't stop talking about the ending because the ending literally, I think, broke me a little bit. But yeah, I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. I enjoyed it, but I don't know, I was left wanting something more throughout the beginning of the story, but it really got me at the end there, so what can I say? Those were the books that I read in the month of April. I definitely had a decent reading month. I read 6 books, which is great. Although when I was putting together my notes for this video, I realized that I had read 6 books, but I felt like I had read much more, which was a really weird feeling to have, but it is what it is. Like I said at the beginning of the video, it was kind of a mixed bag of a reading month. I had 1 5-star read, 1 4-star read, 1 3-star read, and 2 2-star reads, and then Twilight, which obviously I haven't rated yet, and I will not tell you what I've rated it, and I haven't even posted it on my Goodreads because I'm saving that one for when I post the video, which will be soon. So yeah, that was what I read in the month of April. It was a good reading month. Hopefully May will be even better, especially because I have my challenge TBR, which you can see that video. I will link it down below. I will also be linking all of the books I read this month in my description down below. I will be linking them through bookshop.org, which is a website where you can buy books from independent booksellers, and I, for one, try to support independent booksellers as much as I can, especially in times of coronavirus. I know not all independent bookshops are open, but this website has done a great job of bringing independent bookshops together in order to be able to sustain them. If you buy through the links that I will be posting down below, those are affiliate links, so I will be making some money out of that. But yeah, support your local indie bookseller. The bookshop.org also helps you find local indie booksellers near you. So yeah, all around great website, and support your local bookshop, y'all. Thank you so much for joining me in this video. Tell me what you read in the month of April down below and how you felt about it. Also, your feelings on Twilight are very much welcome in the comment section down below. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. I will see you in the next one. Okay, bye!